Trouble in the shed. The Fat Controller sat in his office and listened to the noise outside. The passengers were angry. The station master came in. "There's trouble in the shed, sir. Henry is sulking, there's no train, and the passengers are saying this is a bad railway." "Indeed," said the Fat Controller, "we cannot allow that." He found Henry, Gordon, and James looking very sulky. "Come along, Henry. It's time your train was ready." "Henry's not going," said Gordon. "We won't shunt like common tank engines." That was Thomas's job. "We're important tender engines. You fetch our coaches and we will pull them. Tender engines don't shunt." "Oh, indeed," said the Fat Controller severely. "We'll see about that. Engines on my railway do as they are told." He hurried away and drove off to find Edward. The yard has never been the same since Thomas left to run his branch line, he thought, sadly. Edward was shunting. "Leave those trucks, please, Edward. I need you to push coaches for me in the yard." "Thank you, sir. That will be a nice change." "There's a good engine," said the Fat Controller. "Off you go, then." So Edward found coaches for the 3 engines, and that day the trains ran as usual. But when the Fat Controller came next morning, Edward looked unhappy. Gordon came clanking past, hissing rudely. "Bless me," said the Fat Controller, "what a noise!" "They all hiss me, sir," answered Edward. "They say tender engines don't shunt, and last night they said I have black wheels. I haven't, have I, sir?" "No, Edward, you have nice blue ones and I'm proud of you. Tender engines do shunt. But all the same, we do need another tank engine here." He went to a workshop and they showed him all sorts of tank engines. At last he saw a smart little green engine with 4 wheels. "That's the one," he thought. "If I choose you, will you work hard?" "Oh, sir, yes, sir." "There's a good engine. I'll call you Percy." "Yes, sir, thank you, sir," said Percy happily. So he brought Percy back and drove him to the yard. "Edward," he called, "here's Percy. Will you show him around?" Percy soon learned what he had to do. They had a happy afternoon. Then Henry came by, hissing as usual. "Wheesh!" said Percy suddenly. Henry jumped and ran back to the shed. "How beautifully you wished him," laughed Edward. "I can't wish like that." "Oh," said Percy, "that's nothing. You should hear them in the workshop. You have to wish loudly to make yourself heard." Next morning Thomas arrived. "The Fat Controller sent for me. I expect he needs help," he said importantly to Edward. "Shh, shh, here he comes." "Well done, Thomas. You've been quick. Listen, Henry, Gordon and James are sulking. They say they won't shunt like common tank engines. So I have shut them up and I want you both to run the line for a while." "Common tank engines indeed," snorted Thomas. "We'll show them. And Percy here will help too." "Oh, sir, yes, sir, please, sir," answered Percy. Edward and Thomas worked the main line, starting at opposite ends. They pulled the trains, whistling cheerfully to each other as they passed by. Percy puffed along the branch. Thomas was anxious, but both driver and guard promised to take care of Annie and Clarabelle. There were fewer trains, but the passengers didn't mind. They knew the 3 other engines were having a lesson. Henry, Gordon and James stayed shut up in the shed and were cold, lonely and miserable. They wished now they hadn't been so silly.